So, good morning, afternoon, evening from wherever you are joining. Thank you for joining us on yet another episode of CPaaS with Comviva, our very own webinar series where we delve deeper into endless possibilities of CPaaS. I'm Deshbandhu Bansal. You can call me Desh, Chief Operating Officer at Comviva, your host for today. And joining us today, we have Kevin Nethercott, who is the managing partner at CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome to our webinar. How is CPaaS revolutionizing the customer experience in the modern age? Together, we shall explore the fascinating world of CPaaS, and it's evolving very, very fast. So it'll be really good to have your thoughts today on this interesting space.
Well,
Over to you, Kevin.
I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to spend some time with you, Dash. As you say, it's an exciting time to be having this conversation.
Absolutely. And Kevin has been, industry expert and been in different roles, founded the company. I think maybe just tell us a little bit about you so that the audience knows. I mean, I know you, but I think it'll be good for audience to know about you before we start.
Sure. No, appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I think, really my journey, interestingly enough, started in Japan, where I had my first startup way back in 1996. We did the first voice over IP ever, I think, in Japan. And so ever since then, I've kind of been on the front end. I joke that I've been the trailblazer, and everybody behind me is the one that makes the money, but I've had all the fun. And the most recent, probably applicable background is that I ran the commercial business at a company called Telestacks that ended up being acquired by Mavenir, who I'm sure Comviva and your audience knows well. And then after putting in my year there, I wanted to get back to the entrepreneurial side of things. And I saw a real need, having been in the industry, working with carriers, particularly over the last number of years, that as a CPaaS industry, we didn't have a place to call our own. We were always 1 hour in someone else's show. And so the need to have a community and to work together was really important. And then the second thing that drove me to start and co-found the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance was the need to help with the soft side of the business. With companies like Conviva, the technology is there, right? I think, you guys are nailing that part, but there seems to be a struggle sometimes of how we take it to market, how do we train our sales teams, and so there's a real need to help organizations take this wonderful technology to market, make some money out of it, and more importantly, make some happy customers. And so because of that and that experience, that's what led me to find with my co-partner and co-founder, Rob Curver, the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. So excited to share what we're seeing in the industry and maybe share some tidbits on some best practices and what might help others.
Absolutely, Kevin. So I think your background is definitely across the industry in many different verticals, and then starting your own company in CPaaS, enabling so many telcos, and then starting the alliance. And when we talked about the alliance last year, I was very impressed with the background and the kind of vision that you had set for the alliance, and that's where we decided to join the alliance. And I think it has been a great journey. And I would, on the alliance part, I would say that more and more partners in the ecosystem, including telcos, encouraged to be part of the alliance and take benefit of that. So I think kudos to you and Rob for taking this on. Now, can you help us simplify for the audience what CPaaS is and what is the current landscape of the industry just to get started? Yeah.
Sure. So obviously CPaaS stands for CPaaS, or Communications Platform as a Service, right? And so that's really a technical term, right? And it kind of describes the stack that's used in the back end and provides these communication services. And sometimes I think the easiest way to describe CPaaS is to look at it from a use case perspective, right? And so just from a personal basis, I don't know that there's anyone in your audience that doesn't touch a CPaaS every single day of their life, right? If you get a message about your bank account, if you interact with your Uber driver, there's so many different ways that we interact with CPaaS. And it's really interesting because it's maturing, right? So we like to talk about CPaaS in terms of CPaaS 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And so, there's been a little bit of news lately about CPaaS and its future. And really what they're describing is the 1.0 CPaaS. This is the developer community. These are basic messaging APIs, voice APIs, maybe record a call, simple things like that. That's been around for a decade now. And it's still a big part of the business because we as consumers need those services. But that's 1.0. There's so much more we can do with it. When you look at 2.0, and I know that this is an area where Conviva also has some great tools and capabilities, is we're looking at low code, no code capabilities where we can drag and drop and put different types of communication flows together. We can integrate into our enterprise software and have a much better experience for our end users. And so clearly, right now, CPaaS is really strong in the enterprise space in 2.0. It's in full-fledged. What's exciting is what's coming. And I might say is already here in some instances is 3.0. This is where things like AI and machine learning and so forth comes into the mix. Because if you think about the technology stack of CPaaS, it's sitting in the middle of everything. And so it's the perfect place to deploy AI and these types of new technologies because you can add it to different elements of your enterprise implementation. So from that perspective, we're the 3.0 is the future, and we're seeing this convergence between UCaaS, CCaaS, CPaaS, and really what those asses are is a way to have a better customer experience, right? So I always kind of joke, it's like we got to get rid of the asses and just focus on the customer. It isn't about the technology, it's how does the customer use it to better the experience.
Yep. So I think very beautifully put in terms of saying that all the evolution that you talks about, what is at the center of this evolution and what are we trying to achieve? And it is to improve the customer experience and keeping pace with how the customer is also evolving and their requirements are evolving. So talking about CX, what we have seen is one of the reports which talks about 85% of the executives are looking at investing in CX in one way or the other. And like you said, in any customer interaction, or not any, but most customer interactions, you see CPaaS playing a role in one way or the other. So it is very, very crucial. Now, do you feel this could be a key driver among other drivers behind growing adoption of CPaaS, which is about enhancing customer interaction and customer experience?
Absolutely. I mean, we've worked very closely with the analyst community globally, and with their input, along with stories and use cases like companies like Conviva, we were able to put together what we call the State of CPaaS report last year. And as we looked at what the analysts were saying, and as we talked to the actual vendors and end users, we see the market and the industry growing from $16 billion a year to $100 billion. So we're really just getting started. But it really is that growth is going to come from a number of different areas, and we're converging that and ultimately delivering that customer experience. And that's how we get to that number.
So how crucial is the integration of CPaaS with existing systems for a cohesive customer experience?
I think it's absolutely critical. I had the unfortunate experience recently. I've got an older Forerunner that I like to take into the mountains here in Utah, and my starter went out and I couldn't start my car, and so it's like I have to tow it because I'm not at home. And so I call my insurance company, and while I'm talking to them with an agent, um, I tell them, the issue. While I'm talking, I get a text, and they say, "Can you confirm your location?" So they've taken the location from our phone call, they've sent me a map, and they said, "Confirm your location." And then um, it sent me another text, and it said, "Your tow truck's on the way." Sent me another text with a map and started showing me exactly where the tow truck was as it was coming to my location. It was like I was, afraid of calling the insurance company. I thought I'd be online for 30 minutes to talk to somebody, then I'd have to beg them to come and help me pick up the car. But no, within 5 minutes, because everything was automated on the back end through CPaaS, the tow truck was literally on the road before I hung up. And so that's again a personal example, but think of how many systems they had to tie into to facilitate that wonderful customer experience. They were tied into Maps, their CRM, because they recognized my number, they knew who I was. So all of these systems are tied in, and then they have a happy customer. And so there's so many examples of good experiences, and we've all had the bad experience, right? And in today's environment, there's so many options and choices that if you're not always giving that great experience, I'm off to the next brand because it's so easy to switch these days. So yes, the short answer is that you have to have great integration into your back-end systems as an enterprise to provide that wonderful experience for your customers.
Yep. Yeah, so you're making it sound all very seamless and a great user experience, customer experience. Now, how does that great customer experience translate to great growth or revenues for the enterprise? Any example or instance you want to highlight where CPaaS itself has led to growth for, or being a game changer for a business?
Well, I think that example is a good one, right? Here I am talking on a podcast about how great this service was. And so, I think the word of mouth of consumers cannot be overlooked, because if I have a bad experience, I'm going to tell everybody about it as well, right? So I think first of all, that's why this experience has become so critical, particularly with social media and other ways to talk about a brand. It's really, really important. What we're finding is that I think Gartner said about 80% of enterprises will actually be using some form of CPaaS by the end of this year. And so what's happening is organizations are seeing one single use case to start with. But once they implement that, they're recognizing a second, a third, and a fourth. And so you're seeing the opportunity to really do two things. One is by implementing this technology, you're creating a much more efficient organization. And so as an organization, there's a significant cost savings in how we can help agents. I don't know that we're in a position yet to start replacing, like, call center agents and salespeople and so forth, but we can use technology to enhance their role, making them much better at their job. I was talking to a company the other day where they have some door-to-door salespeople, and they're now using AI. As someone approaches the house, they actually get a download of interesting information. It's kind of Big Brother. It's a little scary, but at the same time, it's really helpful where they know about the homeowner, and then based on that, they're actually pushing scripts to the salesperson on what to say that matches that person, right? So you've got some really advanced things that make your employees more efficient. So you're going to save money that way. On the other side, absolutely, if you think about our gig economy as an example, it wouldn't exist without these types of services, right? If I can't message my Airbnb, if I don't have number masking, I can't ride in Uber because of privacy and security issues. So there's so many different ways that it enables new interactions. Um, Sometimes leading to more efficiencies, but other times it's new features that you can actually charge more for because you're doing such a great job.
Very interesting. And I think assisted AI is a big space which is, I think, being adopted, especially in the call center or any other area of communication. Interesting use cases, and thanks for sharing, Kevin. A follow-up would be, are there specific industries where it is more relevant than others from a CPaaS perspective, and where it has shown exceptional promise in addressing the customer experience challenges?
Yeah, I think at this point, frankly, CPaaS itself is a very horizontal. I mean, anytime we need to message or talk to somebody, it fits, right? And so I don't think that there's an industry that wouldn't benefit from it. But really, I think the industries that deal a lot with the end user, the consumer, I think can take the most advantage of it. You look at how Amazon has implemented it with all their reminders and text messages. Again, we've talked about ride sharing; those are obvious ones. But I think the finance industry is really interesting, where we can do alerts and reminders. There's a lot of video now that comes from CPaaS. People may not realize that video is such a big important part of it. But I know, for example, in India, there's certain things you can't do in the bank without facial recognition or a live or a video-based approval. And so being able to immediately bring video up as part of someone's interaction allows the bank much more cost effectively, and for a customer, much easier, right? I don't have to go into the bank and do it in person. I can now do that over video. And so, the financial sector for sure. Healthcare, think about all the interactions working with a company that's now integrated CPaaS into all of the hospital systems. And so now they're step by step with the patient on their journey. As soon as the doctor tells them what their illness might be, they're receiving a text with a whole portfolio of support. um, they get their schedules, they get schedule reminders. They do all these things to really help them in a journey that might be, very difficult for them. But this communication and interaction helps take some of that burden off and makes it better. So, those are a couple of examples. Using IoT with manufacturing and being able to alert and do some things are also really important. So again, I don't know that there's one that stands out too much more than the other, but I think financial healthcare are probably leading the way as far as total volume of actual usage.
Yeah. See, as Comviva, we are into fintech, martech, digitech, three verticals, which all at the southbound, I mean, is powered by CPaaS platforms, which is enabling those conversations and communication. So we see that, and I think fintech for sure is the number one because it's about identifying, authenticating, informing, cross-selling, upselling products. So there are many areas. So that definitely stands out. But pretty much every vertical touches the CPaaS space. So just moving on to a little bit different
Yep.
segment, just to so there is a lot of excitement about the convergence of telco APIs and GSMA's Open Gateway initiative. How do you envision the synergy between the two worlds of telco API and OGI, which is starting, and the communication-based CPaaS, which has been around from a traditional definition of CPaaS, and the change in definition of CPaaS with the network API is coming in. So how do you see that as all coming together or staying two different tracks?
Right. No, that's a really interesting question, and something that we at the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance are very, very involved in. So, if we look at telco APIs, there is a couple of key groups that are driving this, right? So first of all, from the technical side, we have the Kamara group that is looking at the technical side of things, of what do these APIs look like and how do they work, and so forth. And then you have GSMA that's created the Open Gateway Initiative, OGI, that carriers are now signing up for as a way to provide these telco APIs. And so I think from a technical perspective, we've moved this along much faster than anything that's gone through GSMA before, because they've kind of done an open source approach, which I think was brilliant. But what we have felt within the industry is like, okay, we've got the technology here, but how do we commercialize it? And how do we actually use these APIs in a real use case? And so this is where we're starting to see the combination of CPaaS and telco APIs. If I were to highlight a couple of really interesting carriers that are doing this, I'd look at eand out of UAE, which I know is an important Conviva customer, and I think you're helping enable a lot of this, as well as Deutsche Telekom, both members of the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. And what they're doing from a strategic perspective, which we are big fans of, we think that this is a best practice and the way to really deploy and make this a business, is that they have launched what I would call traditional CPaaS services, right? So they're selling to the enterprise, they're selling to developers, and doing that, quite successfully. And then they're now bringing the telco APIs because this is new, right? And so it's going to take another year or two to I think really get to a point where we're commercializing that. But now they have a strategy where they already have salespeople that are used to selling APIs and solutions. And now as a carrier, because they'll have their own network APIs, this will be able to give them an advantage over maybe some of the OTT CPaaS players out there because they can do something around QoS or security or managing the SIM card that others can't do effectively. And so we think that it's absolutely critical that you have a two-pronged approach. Get into your CPaaS services now. The market's there, it's growing. Get your feet wet, get some customers, and then as your technical network operations team exposes those APIs, you already have a platform and a way to go do that. And so within the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance, we actually have a working group that focuses on this. And our working group interacts with Kamara directly. We're also a GSMA partner, so we're working directly with the GSMA as well on this to help educate the technology guys of what APIs need to be exposed so that we can provide those interesting use cases. So again, long-winded answer, but the short answer is they're very related. The technology stacks may be different, but how we expose that to the end user, the developer, those that are building the application layer, um, it's almost seamless if you do it right, and that'll make it much easier to deploy these services into the market.
Great advice, Kevin. But I think the market is not thinking of this as simply as you put it right now. I think there is a lot of complexity around how the market and different players in the ecosystem are looking at. But yeah, let's see how it evolves. I think this is definitely a space which is evolving, and the clarity around how the offering should be created and offered to the market will only emerge. Maybe 2024 is going to shape that. So let's see.
Mhm.
Um, on that note, just one for organizations considering to adopt CPaaS, what advice would you give to ensure a successful integration and optimal customer impact?
Great question. I think what we're going to see over the next 12, 18, 24 months is the vast majority of carriers, MNOs, MVNOs, CSPs, MSPs, there's plenty of acronyms to go around, but these organizations are in a unique position because they own the relationship with the end user. They have the network, they have these operational capabilities. And so layering CPaaS into that environment is frankly a no-brainer. It's something that everyone's going to have to do. I'm old enough to remember when SIP was coming out. And as we were looking at that as a new technology, there were so many providers that were like, I'm never going to do that. TDM is great. I know the quality, yada, yada, yada. Fast forward not very many years, and if you didn't have SIP in your network, you were out of business. And so it's the same thing now as we look at APIs and how we're going to deploy that. Carriers have to deploy this. Now, to answer your question around kind of the how or what would help them be successful, at the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance, we've actually created a playbook to help facilitate this. It's top shelf. We've worked with 6 analysts to talk about the market and the industry and where you need to focus on. We're generating probably 100 different use cases from members like Conviva, where these are actual use cases that are deployed. We understand the pricing models, and it's already successful. We do assessments. We have go-to-market plans to help organizations get to market quickly. And then we have the alliance itself to come in and network and interact and so forth. And so I think the first bit of advice is buy, don't build. There isn't enough time to build this yourself. And there's wonderful technology providers like Conviva that have been in the industry. They've been through it. They've got a lot of use cases. And so they can get you to market much quicker. And so pick your partners, because partnering is critical. But then really you have to think about your organization from a go-to-market perspective. It is a different sales process. And so from a product marketing perspective, from a sales organization perspective, you cannot underestimate how critical that is to the ultimate success of your product. And so that's an area where we spend a lot of time coaching and sharing best practices, is to help carriers understand the soft side of the business, which actually ends up being the most impactful part of the commercialization and the revenue generation of these new services. But I'd say go for it. We've got so many success cases now. The timing is right. The technology's there, and take advantage of that installed base that you have, and go make some happy customers, because they're gonna find this service somewhere, and
Yeah.
so it should be you.
Yeah, absolutely. And in case they need any support, there is always CPaaS Acceleration Alliance to support these organizations.
I mean,
um,
that's why we're here. Absolutely.
yeah. And so we have MWC around the corner, biggest event for the telco industry. What are your plans for MWC?
Yep, our whole team will be there. And what we've done is we've actually taken a small booth and we're turning that into a studio. And so we'll be having, lots of different industry leaders come by. We'll be doing some interviews. I know that we already have something planned with you while you're there to do that. We'll have some panels. We'll be working with GSMA on getting some of the word out on OGI. And so, our calendar is already filling up. And man, the calendar, talk about the calendar, it's already mid-Feb. And so we're just 2 weeks away from being in Barcelona together, and eating some really good food. And hopefully we don't see snow this year. When my friends from like India or Latin America or even Africa come to MWC and they see snow, it's exciting for them. But I'm in the snow, so I'm looking forward to hopefully the warm Barcelona this year.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you there in Barcelona. So thank you, Kevin, for sharing your expertise and insights. It was wonderful talking to you. Before we part ways, I want to extend our gratitude for taking out time and being part of this session. Your presence was truly elevated and our discussion. And if you have any lingering questions to the audience, I would say, reach out to me, Kevin, and the Alliance. Feel free to write to us on any of these channels, and we value your feedback. And really looking forward to a lot of partners and customers meeting at MWC. We will be there with the Alliance and at the Comviva booth to showcase all the innovative solutions and how the CPaaS industry is evolving. So really look forward to meeting a lot of you at the MWC. Thank you so much, Kevin.
No, appreciate the time and the conversation. Again, if anyone has questions, we have a lot of great information. In fact, the State of CPaaS report that I mentioned, you can download it for free. I think you're going to make it available on your site there at Conviva. And we're at CPaaS, CPaaS AA, Acceleration Alliance.com. So kpasa.com, and come take a look and see how we can help your organization be more successful and have a little bit of fun along the way.
Thank you, Kevin.
All
Look
right.
forward to seeing you
Appreciate
at
it.
Barcelona. Bye.
Yep, we'll see you in Barcelona, Desh. Thanks.